Sup, ladies and gentlemen, Accolonn here, and welcome back to each one of you. And of course, if you are new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us. I am very happy to have you here. Today we're looking into New World, and remember, you can join us live on Twitch. The link is in the description down below. I did play this on Twitch every Tuesday to Friday. And then, of course, to all of the patrons for making videos like this one possible. Videos where I know it's not necessarily what the people on the channel wants to see, but I still love covering other MMOs. This is a first impression with a bit of a twist. Rather than doing the classic first impression, I am going to talk to you about some of the things in the game, give you a general overview of the game, so you could almost look at this as a sort of first impressions, but also sort of, let's call it a reaction rather than a review, because the game is not live yet. There's still a lot of things that's wrong with the game, a lot of server issues that really make the game in some instances very much unplayable. So we're not going to do a review of this yet, but we'll do a reaction and sort of a first impressions sort of mashup, if you will. Now, if you're looking forward to this video, if you're excited for New World or just excited to be here, hit the like button. The like button is how you show your appreciation. Also, let me know in the comment section if you're actually going to try New World, or if you just watched because you wanted to support and you couldn't give two shits about New World. I'd love to read your comments in the comment section down below. And with that said, let's jump into the video. No, sorry. Before we do that, if you look in the timeline down below, you will find that there are chapters if you feel like I talk too slow, or you've heard what you wanted to hear about a specific topic and you want to move on to the next one. You can use the timeline to skip ahead, skip back, whatever you want to do. I value your time and you should value yours as well, so use that timeline. And with that said, let's jump into the video. I do not get better at these transitions. World and mob design is fantastic in New World. The world feels alive. Everything in the world is gatherable. We'll get to gathering and professions in a second. But the fact that when you see a stone, you can mine that stone. When you see a tree, you can chop it down. When you see a plant, you can most likely do something with it. You can gather something with or from that plant. It really does go a very long way at making the world feel relevant at every given point in time. Not to mention the fact, as I said, we will get into professions, but mining and gathering and all that actually does give XP, so you don't feel like you're wasting your time doing those things. It's just another thing that you're doing on top of the world. But really, what ties the world together? Now, the world is beautiful, and there's so many times that you're standing somewhere and you see something off in the distance. You're like, I want to go there. I want to go check what that is. That looks like a really cool place. You get there and the mobs are completely out-leveling you. And you're like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. This is a dangerous place to be. It happens quite often, and it's an adventure. From the very beginning, whatever New World does, and I've yet to be able to put my finger on what it is that they do, but you do want to explore the world. And the game really does a good job of allowing you to explore the world. It wants you to explore. It doesn't want to stop you. This is actually the biggest thing, and we'll get to that in one of the later sections. But one of the biggest things, one of the biggest takeaways for me from the game, playing it now for about 15 hours, I believe, is the game does not get in your way from playing the game. They really want you to engage with their game. But I feel like the world would be nothing without the mob design. So the way mobs work is every mob or type of mob will have a very specific way of fighting them, a way of blocking, dodging things. Now, it does get stale and monotonous because a lot of the time, once you see a zombie, it has two arms, no shank, you know exactly in what formation it's going to attack you in, you know exactly what the rotation is that this zombie is going to go through. Sometimes it can still sort of catch you off guard, especially if you're pulling more than one, which does happen. Most of the zones are very densely packed, so if you're not very careful with where you take the combat, you can very quickly get to a place, and this happened to me, where you pull 5 things, and killing 5 things is horrible. It's a terrible experience, because you don't have enough stamina to block everything. So you're sort of left dodging, blocking, running away, maybe shooting them with a gun from far away, just trying to slow them down a little bit. So it really is very cool. The mobs feel dangerous at all times, and facing a mob that is 2 or 3 levels higher than you, while possible to kill it, you really do feel like this is a challenge. This is difficult. I have to be on point and I have to know exactly what I'm doing. So the world mob design, absolutely fantastic in New World. There is things that should absolutely be improved. I would like to see a little bit more variation, especially on the new mobs or in the early mobs, in the early zones. A little bit of variation, even if it is just not always opening with the same ability within the rotation, you know, so sometimes it will lunge at you from the very beginning rather than running up to you, stopping, and then doing a single 2-strike attack, right? It would be nice if it just maybe got the ability to start lower down the chain and then cycle round back, right? Just so that you feel a little bit more on edge, because once you figure out what the zombies do, yeah, they pretty much do the same thing. Like, if it's the same zombie, it's doing the same thing. So that would be my only real issue with the world at the minute. Now, part of this world design is actually a different feature, a different system that they have in the game, which is called the faction system. Once you reach a certain level, I can't remember what level it is now, you get to choose, it's actually very early on, right? Once you get to First Light, you have to choose one of the 3 factions. You have the Covenant, the Syndicate, and the Marauders. Each of these covenants have a different view on what the world should look like and how the world should be conquered. These factions are going to be integral in your playthrough, and you're going to realize very quickly just how impactful these factions are. Since every town and every territory in the game can be captured by one of the factions, you're very often going to find yourself in the middle of a battle that you maybe didn't even plan on. Now, there is the PvP toggle ability, so you can keep PvP off, therefore you don't have to engage in any of the PvP stuff, but last night, or actually no, not last night, the night before, on Saturday evening, I was busy sort of mining in this new town. I was just out there sort of chopping down trees and doing a quest. And then suddenly I get this message saying that my territory is under attack, right? And very quickly you started to see faction chat just going, oh my god, we need to defend, the Marauders are coming. And suddenly I'm out there mining and gathering resources for the defensive effort to save my town. Because if you lose your town, you also lose all of the buffs, and that's something that the game does immensely well. It's these map buffs. Every single territory that you're in, when you're questing there, you gain territory points. Territory points can be spent on buffs within the territory. These can range from, you know, silly buffs like increased XP, which is not going to mean much at max level, but it will help you get there, to gathering speed increases, to reducing the number, the tax that is charged on the market. And this, by the way, is another big thing. The entire economy of the game is driven by the player, right? There's no vendors in the game. If you want something, you go to the auction house, the marketplace as they call it, and you buy it off of another player. So that's the only vendor in the game, is this marketplace. So really, player is the economy is the player, and players are working together to make the economy even better. These map buffs, 5% decrease in crafting costs. So the map buffs go a really long way, and you don't want to lose those buffs, right? And as soon as another faction takes over the town, you lose all of those buffs. Not only that, but you also lose access to your shared storage. So every single town has its own storage. If your faction controls a specific territory, you will have access to storage from all of the other territories that you control. If you lose that territory, you will only have access to the storage in that town. So all of your other, if you want stuff from the other towns, you'll now have to travel or fast travel to those towns in order to get those items. So there is a big cost to losing your territory, but it's not massive, right? It's not as if suddenly you can't go into the town and suddenly you can't quest there. It simply means that now you lose some of the perks and some of the quality of life stuff that helps having that territory. And the faction system just goes a long way to actually making the world feel more alive, since things can change at the drop of a pin, right? Just instantly, I was out there doing a quest, and suddenly I'm mining to save my town because the Marauders are coming, right? So very cool, very interesting. It deviates, it completely changes. Now suddenly I'm defending my town. I'm no longer doing quests. So very, very good system, the faction system. We'll have to see how far the faction system will ultimately go and what will end up being the faction system, but right now a lot of it ties into sort of progression. So you're sent out to go collect stuff, to go kill stuff for your faction, and all of this plays into faction point, that I assume at some point is going to play a massive part of the game, but good in its earliest rendition, shall we say. Class and combat design is absolutely important in New World. They've done, I would say, a pretty remarkable job at how the classes are designed, in that there really isn't classes, there's weapons, and the weapons really influence what class you are in the game. But I feel like class is a bit of a grandiose term to describe what New World is, considering that you have this weapon swap ability, so you have 2 weapons, and every weapon has its own abilities based on the path that you built in. One amazing thing about this is you can respec on the go. There's no going back to town to talk to your class faction or to your class leader or whatever to respec. If you want to respec, you hit the respec button. Up until level 20, it's free to respec, and then after that, it's just going to cost you gold, right? So you just pay gold, you respec, and you can change everything. You can change all of your stats. You can also change all of your abilities to basically fit whatever you're doing right now. But every single weapon type in the game have different abilities that it unlocks for you, and you can have 3 abilities with different builds into those abilities. The weapons level up as you use them. You will gain XP, normal class XP or character XP, and then you will gain something called weapon experience. The weapon experience is what you use to actually level up your weapon. You become more proficient in it, you can use it, and a lot of it does have actual interplay. So for example, there's, I believe in the sword tree, there is an ability that if you block, I believe it gives you mana back. Or actually, no, sorry. There's an ability. Sorry, excuse me. I just remembered I was playing this Saturday night, actually. So all of the cooldowns is shared. You have 3 ability slots that you have in the game, and it has a shared cooldown. So if you go from a fire staff, for example, to your sword and shield, if you used all of your abilities with the fire staff, they're on cooldown for the sword and shield as well. But in sword and shield, when you do heavy attacks to a target, it actually reduces the cooldown of all abilities by 10%. So you'll go into your fire build, you'll cast all of your abilities, you'll swap sword and shield, you'll heavy attack the target to lower the cooldowns, get all of the cooldowns off cooldown, go back to fire, and now continue the attack, right? So there is interplay between all of these weapons, and you want to use both weapons at all times to get that synergy between them. Now, I'm sure that there's still a lot of balancing that has to happen, because there are weapons that do not obviously play together. Like, I look at the weapons and what they do, and I'm like, it's not obvious to me that I see a lot of interplay here. So there's still stuff that needs to be worked on, but from just a general standpoint, the class design feels very solid. Is it brilliant? No, it still has a long way to go, but considering that this is a brand new game, it is still in beta, even though it's launching very soon, I do expect that over time they will be able to iterate and reiterate to the point where it's actually quite brilliant. The combat system, I don't feel like I'm in the position to actually comment on it. I play from South Africa, the servers are fucking terrible. So for me, the combat system have been very hit and miss. A lot of the times the zombies will sort of spurg out, especially if there's no clear path for them to get to you. They'll just sort of run in one direction. You're like, where the hell's he going? And then you can't hit him because I have to aim miles ahead of him just to make sure that my MS travel time, like bullet travel time, actually hits the zombie, right? So it's been a very hit and miss experience. But it's not horrible. It's actually fun to just be out in the world and killing things, because you're very involved. It's an action combat system. You are very involved in the combat system. So not horrible, but I do feel that there's still a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the class and the combat design. Professions and gathering. We have to talk about this because it is such a fundamental part of the game. I already told you there's no vendors in this game. Everything you need is on the marketplace, and it's provided by other players. Almost every single profession in the game requires a lot of the other professions. Just take making bullets, for example. To make bullets, you require gunpowder. To make gunpowder, you require charcoal, you require linen, and something else. I can't remember what it's called. But you require those things. So you need the tailoring bench, as well as the forge, as well as the stone cutting bench. So you need that in order to make the gunpowder. Now that you have the gunpowder, you require the forge as well as the leather worker in order to get the bullets out. So you need a lot of different professions in order to make a single item in the game, and it just gets worse from there. When you're making guns or swords or stuff, you need even more of the professions involved. Now, every class has access to all of the professions. You're not like, you don't choose one profession and then that's what you do. You can do all of the professions at once. You have on your character actually a toolbar that is only for your tools that you're going to be using out in the world, your fishing pole, all the rest of it. Now, because of the interdependency of all of these different professions on one another, I definitely see a world where some people will absolutely fixate on certain professions, while others will fixate on others, and they will use the marketplace in order to share these abilities, because all of these have to be leveled up independently. It feels good. It feels very, very solid. There could be a little bit more deviation every once in a while. Like a lot of the time, you are just sort of hunting the exact same thing the whole time. But overall, I think Profession and Gathering have a lot of potential. Problems here and there, but remember, this is a brand new game, so problems will arise. But if you're someone that just cares about professions, you can level fully just by using professions. You do get a shit ton of XP by leveling your professions. You will make crazy amounts of money, and there's almost guaranteed going to be a place for you, considering that a lot of people are going to spend their time killing stuff rather than collecting stuff. There is actual quests in the game, especially when your faction holds a specific territory. You will get quests that ask you to go gather things and then craft things for the defenses of your faction. So you will have a place where you can just be out in the world, just fishing and collecting. Fishing is amazing, by the way. It's one of the few games that I can tell you does fishing really well. It's involved, it feels good. I can say nothing about the fishing. It was actually quite fun to just stand on the bank and just fish. I was with like 100 other people just standing there, just throwing my line in, and then you sort of have to grab it as soon as the fish hooks, and then you have to pull it in, but it actually does fight against you, and the bigger the fish, the harder the fight. So you sort of pull it in and let go, pull it in and let go, pull it in and let go, pull it in and let go. So you're playing with the fish until you finally have it, and then it gives you this wonderful little just picture moment where it's sort of holding the fish up, so you can take a screenshot if you really wanted to. But it's really fun. I will say this, the Profession and the Gatherings, it's really fun. It's in a really good spot, and I can't wait to see more of these professions as we get into the later game. Lore and story, of course, that's why most of you would have clicked on this, because this is a lore channel, and very big warning sign here, this game is not about the lore. That doesn't mean that there isn't a shit ton of lore in the game, it's just not about that. The lore is there, it's scattered all throughout. It's actually done in a very cool way. You have this journal. While you're running around, you'll see these bluish, glowish papers. You click on them, they add to your journal pages. The journal can be accessed from everywhere. The more pages you add, the more complete the story becomes about specific areas and the world at large. So the lore really exists in the game. They've done a good job of telling the story. I was sitting there reading through the journal, and it really does feel like you're reading from other people's experiences, because the journals, or the sections of the journal, is oftentimes letters that was written by people that no longer there, people that have died, people that have moved on. So you really do get a first-hand experience. It's done wonderfully, but it's not about that. The lore only exists to set up the world. The lore is not the draw of the world. They don't send you on massive lore quests. Every quest is voiceovered, which is really nice, but the quests themselves do not add a ton to the lore. It really is just go out, kill a bunch of things, come back because we need it, right? Yeah, it's very much macro. You are the story in this game. The players, you are the story. The lore simply exists to tell the story of the world that you will now make your own. So it's a different way of telling the story, but it is fucking cool. It's very cool. But if you're looking for a Final Fantasy RPG experience, New World's most likely not for you. It's not built to be that. It's built to be a sandbox where story really takes sort of a backseat. My overall thoughts on the game is good, but not yet. That's where I will leave it. While I'm not making at this point a pros and cons list, because I don't think it's fair. I think there's still a lot of the game that I need to experience, and there's still a lot of things that's going to be changing before the game goes live and even after the game goes live. So I'm not going to be making a pros and cons list just now. I will say that it's good, but it's not ready. It's going to need at least another year after launch. Now, luckily, there is no sub to this game. You buy the game once, you can play it as much as you want. But I do believe that in the next year or so, they're going to do a lot to actually make the game or bring the game to where it needs to be. Right now, it's a good, fun game. You're probably going to have a couple of months of really good fun with your friends in this game. Do I see people playing this game non-stop for years and years? No. Not in its current state. Doesn't mean it can't happen eventually, but just in its current state, I do not see that happening. But I've not yet been part of massive faction wars, massive sieges. You know, I've done sort of small-scale stuff, but the massive stuff could absolutely tie a lot of people into the long-term vision of the game. But of course, we'll have to wait and see when it comes to raids, dungeons, you know, PvE stuff, if there's going to be that draw for the general crowd that isn't just all about PvP. And they do a good job of not forcing you into PvP, but I do feel like there is a risk right now that there's not going to be enough PvE stuff there outside of the PvP stuff that you're not forced into. So yeah, that's sort of my overall thoughts. I would love to hear from you. If you've tried New World, if you've played the beta, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of it. And then of course, if you like this video, if you like videos like this one, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It does help out the channel a ton. To all of the patrons, thank you so much for your monthly contributions. It does mean the world to me. Thanks to you, videos like this one is possible. To the Twitch subs and the YouTube channel members, the same goes to you. Without you, I would not be where I am today. The channel would be nowhere near the quality that it produces today, and that's all thanks to Alex, and that means that's all thanks to you. So I cannot thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. And then to everyone else, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing, for liking, for leaving comments. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace out, fam.